If you've ever watched a woman ignore the guy who treats her like a queen, only to chase the one who barely gives her attention, you're not alone. And no, it's not because she's toxic. It's because her biology, psychology, and intuition are hardwired to crave something deeper than niceness. Women don't want danger in the sense of violence or chaos. What they crave is edge. They're biologically wired to feel more attraction toward men who signal leadership, confidence, control, and risk, not submission. They're drawn to a man who moves like he doesn't need approval, a man who protects his time, energy, and focus, a man who could be dangerous, but chooses when and how to use that power. And Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This video is not about becoming fake. It's about becoming magnetic, by tapping into the traits that separate you from the crowd. In modern dating, this translates to, if you're only nice, only soft, only available, you will be overlooked. Because women don't fall for what's easy to access. They fall for what makes them feel something. So let's break this down. Traits of the dangerous man women are secretly drawn to, and how you can embody them with clarity, confidence, and calm power. Trait 1. Be more unpredictable. Keep her curious, not comfortable. One of the most powerful traits a man can have, especially in dating, is unpredictability. Not in a toxic, erratic way, but in a strategic, grounded way. You don't always say yes. You don't always reply instantly. You're not rude, but you're not easy to read either. And that's what creates tension. Because when a woman can't predict your next move, she leans in. She starts thinking about you more. She starts wondering what you're doing, who you're with, what you're thinking. And that mystery? It's addictive. It makes you stand out without saying a word. Think about this moment. You're texting a girl you like. It's going well. Most guys at that point start flooding her inbox. Good morning. What are you doing? Let's hang soon. Again and again. But you move different. You slow down. You don't ghost her, but you let space breathe. You let time stretch. Not to play a game, but because your life has momentum. You're building something, you're focused, and she can feel it. Now, she's the one thinking about you. Now, you're not the guy chasing her attention. You're the guy she's wondering about. Trait 2. Be more grounded. Let her feel you're calm. A dangerous man doesn't panic. He doesn't raise his voice, overreact, or let small things shake him. His power comes from stillness, from knowing that no situation controls him unless he lets it. And that calm, steady presence, it speaks louder than anything he could say. It's not about pretending to be cold. It's about truly being in control of your emotions, your reactions, your energy. When a woman feels that around you, she doesn't just feel safe. She feels something deeper: respect, admiration, and curiosity. Let's bring this into real life. You're on a date. Things take an unexpected turn. Maybe the food is late. Maybe she brings up something that could trigger you. Most guys would get flustered or defensive, but not you. You stay cool. You hold your posture, shift the conversation, maybe even smile. And now, she's watching you differently. Not as someone who just wants to impress her, but as someone she can trust in any room, any mood, any moment. Machiavelli taught that true leaders stay composed while others panic. Because when emotions rise, most people lose clarity and power. But the man who stays calm, He keeps control of the room, the moment, and the perception others have of him. And in dating, that makes all the difference. Asan. Trait 3. Be more mysterious about your intentions. Power lies in ambiguity. There's power in silence, in holding back just enough, in letting people wonder instead of always giving them answers. A dangerous man knows this, and he uses it. Not to play games, but to protect his leverage. Because when everyone knows your next move, you've already lost control of the frame. In dating especially, most men rush to define things. They overshare, they overcommit, they overexpose. They want to be liked, so they say everything too early. But the man who stays a little harder to read, who doesn't give away his full hand on day one, becomes 10 times more interesting. Picture this. A girl you're talking to asks, "So, what are you looking for?" Most guys either fumble awkwardly or say, "Whatever you're looking for." Instead, you say, "I know what I want, but I prefer to discover if it fits naturally, not just force it into a label." That answer doesn't close the door. It opens curiosity. She leans in because now you're not just another guy with a script. You're someone who moves with purpose. Machiavelli taught that a leader must never show all his cards, not because he's dishonest, but because flexibility is power. If you define yourself too quickly, you let others control the narrative. But when you stay clear yet elusive, focused yet unreadable, you hold the upper hand. In dating, that creates attraction. In life, that creates influence. Trait 4. Be more committed to your mission than to her validation. A man who's chasing purpose will never have to beg for attention. His focus becomes his signal. His drive becomes his presence. And that presence pulls people in without a word. Women especially feel it. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you've already chosen what matters most: your path. In dating, most men unconsciously flip the script. They center the woman too early. They cancel plans, pause projects, and compromise their routines just to keep her engaged. But that signals something deeper, that she's your goal, not your complement. Here's a real-world shift. She casually asks what you've been up to. Instead of shrugging and saying not much, you calmly respond, "Finalizing a few things for the product I'm launching next month. Long days, but it's moving." You're not flexing. You're not trying to sound cool. You're just aligned. That subtle shift from passive to purposeful changes how she sees you. Now, you're not background noise. You're a man building something, and people want to be part of what's being built. Machiavelli taught that people are drawn to leaders who know where they're going and why. The ends justify the means wasn't about deceit. It was about clarity, about the idea that strong direction creates power. In dating, that means your path must be stronger than your desire to impress. Because a man on a mission doesn't ask to be chosen. He becomes the one who naturally stands out. Trait 5. Be more comfortable with conflict, even when it burns. The man who fears conflict is the man who gets walked on. But the man who welcomes it, not with aggression, but with calm strength, becomes impossible to manipulate. Women might test you, not to harm you, but to feel your edges, to see what you'll allow. And if you fold too easily, they feel it and lose interest just as fast. The dangerous man isn't reactive, but he's not spineless either. He can handle uncomfortable truths, speak when it's time, and stay silent when it matters. That control, that quiet ability to confront tension without losing control, that's what makes him different. You've probably been here. A woman jokes about something that touches a nerve, maybe about your ambition, your masculinity, or your past. Most guys would laugh it off to avoid awkwardness. But you stay calm. You look her in the eye and say, "That's not something I joke about." Simple, respectful, assertive. And now, she sees you differently. She knows where the line is, and more importantly, she knows you'll protect it. Machiavelli taught that a man who tries too hard to be good, to be liked by all, will ultimately be destroyed. In life, as in love, peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the mastery of it. Women don't need a man who avoids all tension. They want a man who can walk through fire and stay composed, because that's the kind of man who makes her feel safe, even in the storm. Trait 6. Be more selective with your attention. Not everything deserves a reaction. What makes a man feel powerful, even dangerous, isn't aggression. It's restraint. The most magnetic men don't throw their attention around like confetti. They know that presence is a currency, and the less you spend it on everything, the more people value it when it's theirs. A man who gives his time, energy, and validation to everyone becomes background noise. But the one who moves with intention, who only speaks when he has something to say, who shows interest rarely, but sincerely, that man becomes unforgettable, not because he's cold, but because he's deliberate. Machiavelli observed that people respond more to appearances than actions. In his words, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Translated to modern life, how you present your value matters more than how often you offer it. And when your attention becomes something she can't predict, can't control, and can't consume whenever she wants, she starts chasing. Not because you withheld, but because you moved with discipline. Remember, in a world addicted to instant gratification, the man who takes his time becomes the most remembered. Be that man. Here's the truth. You don't have to be cold, aggressive, or fake to be dangerous. You just have to stop leaking power. Most people, especially men, lose attraction not because they're not good enough, but because they're too available, too soft, too easy to figure out. And what's familiar too fast gets ignored just as quickly. A dangerous man, in the best sense, is the man who respects himself first. He doesn't overshare. He doesn't overgive. He doesn't over-explain. He knows that power isn't something you throw around. It's something you carry quietly. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He taught that strength isn't always loud. It's often quiet, strategic, and fully in control. And in the world of dating, that's exactly what women respond to. Not manipulation, not cruelty, but structure, direction, presence. So stop chasing validation. Start building presence. Instead of trying to be her everything, become someone she has to earn access to. Instead of trying to be constantly nice, become someone who moves with purpose, standards, and calm intensity. And most of all, instead of asking if you're good enough, ask if your energy is being respected. Because when you become a man with control over himself, a clear vision, and a posture that speaks louder than words, you don't just attract attention, you attract desire. And that's not something you beg for. That's something you embody. Now rewatch this video if you need to. Pay attention to the part that hit home, that stirred something in you. That's your edge. Sharpen it. Because when a man moves with quiet power, he doesn't just change how women see him. He changes how he sees himself. And that's where real confidence begins. If this spoke to you, don't just keep it in your head. Write a comment, even just a few words. It helps you remember. and it might help someone else too. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this content, and share this with someone who, in your eyes, needs it right now. Just trust your instinct. We're all trying to get clearer, more solid inside. So let's build minds that don't break.